I was born in the Soviet Union. I got very fortunate to come to this great country when I was 3 years old, and life was super hard. I lived with 9 family members in a studio apartment the size of this stage in Queens. We grew up lower middle class the majority of my early childhood, but it was a happy household. My mom, as you mentioned quickly, is the hero of my life, and she instilled incredibly massive foundations for me around kindness and empathy and compassion and all the things. I mean, literally VeeFriends, the IP that I'm building right now on the back of NFTs, which will have the biggest booth at this convention in 10 years, is really, is really, really, really the seed of how my mother saw the world. My mom lost her mom at 5, grew up in the Soviet Union, like real tough life, and really showed me all the true answers to the world. And so I grew up very, very much not entitled. My mom was the sweetest as pie, but my mom is super cheap and we were poor. So everything I ever wanted, she looked me in the face and said, go get it. So lemonade stands, washing cars, shoveling snow. You know, I'm built on hard work. I think entitlement is a disease. I think a lot of people have it today. And I'm very grateful I don't. And I think we're all byproducts of our childhood. I think there's things that I've had to work on just like anybody else. I think as grown-ups, we can do that. You can't just say, oh, my parents fucked me up. You know, you've got to work at it. But I am as grateful as one can be on earth. I've been writing a book in my head. I've written a lot of books, but the one that I've been holding nearest and dearest is a book that I'm gonna call Perfectly Parented. And I'm gonna talk about how they did it, what they did, and I hope it creates different conversations, because I think parenting is one of the most important conversations in the world. The thing that inspires me daily and why I put myself so out there and built the following that I built, and definitely why I'm building VeeFriends, is we have the capacity to change.
Yeah.
Humans inspire me so much. You know, we're sitting here as the byproduct of some good situations, but listen, you and I had a bunch of stuff. I didn't know my dad at all. He worked every day of his life until I was 14. Like, you know, like everyone's got stuff, but taking on the challenge of leaning into optimism and figuring out whether it's meditation, exercise, counseling, education, the consumption of positive content versus negative content, or whatever your path is, I think it's really inspiring that we have the capacity to evolve as well. And that's what I spend my life on, which is I have a level of guilt and gratitude of thinking I had a great situation, and I wanna and continue to push the conversation that if one doesn't, you have so much capacity to change your outcome, and I'm inspired by that. Entitlement's a very important word for all of us because it is foundational in the starting point to all the other things we've been talking about over the last 2 days. Entitlement is also going to be very difficult for all of us to talk about in this room because it means we have to look at ourselves, not look at the people that we're imposing it on. Over the last 3 years, I have received hundreds of thousands of messages from 15 to 25-year-olds telling me variations of stories of how much they love and appreciate their parents deeply, but deep down, they resent them and or hate them so much because while they continue to take their unlimited Uber from their parents, while they continue to take a brand new BMW on their 17th birthday, while they continue to be thrilled that their parents bought them their first apartment in New York City, or much smaller things like a first-class plane ticket or something of that degree, they inherently deeply understand that they are a zoo animal and are completely unprepared to actually live in the world. This is very difficult because so many, like myself, come from places where you start with nothing. Half this audience came from the fucking dirt. The others had parents or grandparents that did. This is deep within us that once you tasted garbage, you have no interest in letting your children taste it. This is not judgment. You're looking at a man who's run 2 companies now, and the #1 vulnerability I've had running these 2 companies successfully is I personally created too much entitlement with my organizations because I don't like conflict. I struggle with radical candor. I'm a tough guy on fucking Instagram, but in real life, I just want to take all the pressure and do it myself and put everybody in a happy place because happiness deploys better success until it overcorrects. We have a whole culture that is disproportionately judging the youth, literally judging the youth that they fucking parented. My friends, for us to look at this and understand what's actually happening, we have to understand that so many in today's society, and long before social let us flex on each other, we did it by the things we wore, by the things we drove, by the stories we told at the PTA. Most people continue to parent their children based on what they think other people think of them, not by listening to their actual children. This is a very important conversation. We cannot get to the path of all the other talks that we've been listening to without eliminating entitlement. It is very difficult to be empathetic or grateful without eliminating entitlement. We must put accountability on a pedestal. We must destroy 8th place trophies. That doesn't mean that we don't admire effort, but results fucking matter in life. My mother gave me so much fucking self-esteem that it makes some people not like me. However, she equaled that with uncomfortable amounts of accountability. When I went 0 for 4 in a baseball game and struck out 4 times, it wasn't the sun's fault. It wasn't my coach's fault. She looked me in the face and said, "You fucking sucked." It didn't taste great. It must have not been fun for her to deliver, but my deep, deep happiness is predicated on her sucking out every piece of entitlement out of my body, my deep capacity to be empathetic and grateful, which transforms in what most people see is somebody who markets. But in the way I navigate my life and the way that I market to the end consumer, my unbelievable opportunity to speak in front of this crowd today is predicated on listening. I talk, you listen to my podcast, I interrupt every single person that is on my show because I've already heard what they said and I just want to move it along and we don't fucking edit. It seems mean, it seems audacious, it's deeply based on listening. We have to start the process of listening to the youth. They're telling us the answers. You just care what your neighbor thinks about your kid. You just care about what your mother thinks about your kid. You just care about what your sister thinks about your kid. You need to start listening to your kid. When this little hubbub that popped up about USC and other colleges, this was no surprise to me. There was no shock behind this. We are a mass society predicated on overreacting to other people's judgment. We are awfully good at judging. We are awfully good at judging. We have to start the conversation around entitlement.
I've happily just quit my 10th job. I'm gonna keep going after it till I figure it out. But man, you know what Slavic parents are like, man. How do you balance both but go after it all at the same time?
By recognizing how sweet it is when you succeed on your own terms, how proud they'll be about you. Too many kids struggle with conflict with parents in the short term without realizing that parents always fall into line after you're successful. And by also having the humility that if you're wrong, to admit that you're wrong 20 years from now and adjust. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Listen, everybody at some level, whether they have good parents or bad parents, want to make their parents proud. It's a fucking inherent thing of coming out of somebody's body, right? It is. When I say don't listen to anybody and go quiet, I mean everybody, especially parents, spouses, siblings, especially. But here's the key. When you just said, Garyvee, I think you're the motherfucking man, where people get caught is they get too high on compliments and too low on insults. Nothing makes me happier than when I read my comments where one post is, Garyvee, you're just hot air, fuck you, right? And the next one's like, Gary, you're fucking Jesus, you walk on water. And I look at those two, and I'm like, this is why I'm gonna win. I can't hear either of them. Where so many of you are fucking up is you hear the cheering, but you're crippled by the booing. You're addicted to the cheering, but you don't want to hear the booing. I respect both equally, which means I can't hear either. Either you're gonna be right, or they're gonna be right. I feel the way you delivered your sentence that you're gonna be right. I think you need to limit how much you listen to them.